I sat down with Mr. Beast's team and I said, why did you guys launch? This is a bad business to launch. Here's the cheat code. Now this is really, really important, and most people on the internet would think that this was a snooze, which is, I'm about to give a speech to a former presidential candidate, a ton of the biggest fitness influencers out there. It's private, nobody else allowed, except I'm gonna bring you guys in.
This is Codie Sanchez, everyone.
So what I'm gonna go over today is something I really actually never talk about publicly, and that's this monetization of eyeballs idea. Typically I talk about building businesses and getting ownership or skin in the game because I think that's really important for our country overall. I think you have a lot of people who want to build the house if they own part of the house. If they don't own part of the house, there's more of a likelihood to burn it down. The idea is we want owners across the board. What's cool about this room is everybody that's in here was selected by Claire, Eric, or I specifically because you guys are already owners. You already have the mantle of responsibility laid upon your shoulders, which I think is pretty incredible. And my idea for this thing today was to talk about what I've found over the last, let's call it 2.5 years of turning audience into a monetized business. You know, everybody will talk to you about how to grow your Instagram audience faster. And let me tell you how to go to 10,000 followers in 10 days or whatever. But if what we really believe, which is what I believe, that money is power, I want more power in the hands of people who want to build, who want to share. And I think creators are in a really interesting position because you guys share for a living. You've sort of normalized sharing the things that you've learned. This is kind of new in the world. When I started out in finance a fucking while ago, nobody shared the secrets. Like there weren't these things called masterminds. You didn't have talks like this. In finance, one of my favorite CEOs, but I hated this line, he said to me, Cody, we get rich quietly. And I was like, you know, I don't know. What if instead we all got rich together? Because I think there's a lot of money out there. If we can help people figure out how to get it themselves, then we don't have to do this distribution nonsense of the stuff that we've all earned. I started off at Goldman Sachs, kind of doing what every Latina mother wants her daughter to do, which is like work for the big guy, corporate suit. I was doing the Wall Street stock thing. Parents are super happy. We're making some pretty good quan. And now, you know, I make fucking TikToks on the interwebs. And so things have degraded pretty quickly. The reason why I did it and why I think all of you should be obsessed about this one thing, which is attention. We should be obsessed on it. I think there is a war for our attention. And when a vacuum exists, AKA the smart minds, the intelligent minds aren't out there talking, what exists instead? The fucking Kardashians, right? And all the attention goes to nonsense as opposed to things that could actually make humans better. And so the reason that I did this, you know, when I told my mom that I was going to start a little blog, you know, and that I was going to go online, she kind of lost her mind. She's like, what's wrong with you? You have like a PhD, you got an MBA, what are you doing on the internet? But what I realized really quickly is that audience is the new leverage. I stole part of this from Naval Ravikant, so I have to give him credit. But he has this thing that basically says, leverage is the key to wealth, which I think is true. No one man can go very far. It's the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. You want to go far, you need to go together. And so there are 4 tiers of leverage that came over many, many decades. The first was labor, right? That was old school. Slaves back in the day, all the way to employees today. And the people who had the riches, let's say the pharaohs back in the day, were those who had the most manpower, labor. Then we had capital. Right? When did the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds become titans of industry? If you look at the correlation to date, it's actually when the Banking Act was established in the US. And so when money was available widely and you could get OPM, other people's money, is when these guys became really wealthy. Then what was the next realm of titans? It was when code became available. That's when we got the Bezos, the Jobs. That's because they got leverage in the form of code or an army of robots online, basically, right? And the new, most permissionless version of leverage is what I think all of you guys know, which is audience, eyeballs. This is probably the first time that we have had a form of leverage that you didn't have to have permission for. So even code, you had to have like a supercomputer back in the day or access to a Stanford lab like some of these guys did. Today, audience, you don't have to have permission. You can grow your audience on a bunch of varied platforms without a ton of capital and without somebody at a bank saying that you're allowed to get a loan.
Wow, so you can really give me a loan?
I sure can.
And so once I realized this, I was like, oh, no, I'm an idiot to not, yes, have those first 3 forms of leverage, but add the 4th on it. I'll ask this question to you guys. Have you ever had a job you hated? Okay, good. And why did you hate your job? What made you leave eventually? It's usually one word. It's your boss. Your boss sucked, right? The boss wasn't good.
That pretty much sums it up.
And so the problem is if we become owners of businesses, what do we become? the boss. So don't suck. Don't do what everybody else has done and create companies that are terrible for your employees and create attention that is Kardashian-like in your cheap usage of your audience. And so that's my only ask. I work with this agency called Night Media, and they run the 50 biggest YouTubers online in the country. So I had them do some analysis. And basically what's fascinating is a bunch of these guys came from venture capital, and venture capital is really good at doing one thing. They're really good at actually figuring out where do we put our cash so that it can get the most return on it humanly possible. And they realized that 40 cents of every dollar from venture capital was going to these 4 companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. And they're like, that's not great. We're basically giving money to these companies and they are giving it to the bigger companies. So there's some sort of twist. Well, what started to happen is the VCs started to realize, oh, wait a second. What if we could not just go to these big companies, but we could go direct to influencers and circumvent the advertising rules? And that essentially created this creator economy. And creators sort of became the solution to this VC problem of 40 cents of the dollar going to ad spend at the big 4. And so, you probably recognize some of these guys. I don't think that the creator economy will be amazing for every creator. It's going to be the 80-20 rule like everywhere else. We are not going to have every creator making millions and stuff that people say online, but the smart ones are going to make tons of money. And you've seen this a few times over. We've got like Blogilates, I think is her name. You got Barstool, 600 million, Mr. Beast, who went out and tried to raise $100 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. That's what he thinks his company's worth. Nick Bare, public numbers say somewhere between 50 and 150 million in revenue for that company, which means that it's probably worth anywhere from 3 to 5x that. And then we got Ryan Reynolds, Mint Mobile. But look at this one over to the right, which probably a normal person doesn't know her name. Not all influencers are created equal. Is this too soon? I don't know. This is what we want to try to avoid. The more people we have doing stuff like this, the less trust we have as a community. And what we've seen across the country is, does anybody seem really trusting right now in the US? Like if you're on the right, you think the left's all lying. If you're on the left, you think the right's all lying. Nobody trusts anything. We're becoming a much lower trust society. And so this is what we have to avoid, because the one thing that has the highest price on it more than anything else is our reputation if we're playing this attention economy. Your reputation matters a lot less when you don't use eyeballs to convert to dollars. What's fascinating about that is if you look at, like, I picked Emma Chamberlain, for instance, because I don't know her personally and I'm guessing some of her numbers. Based on her audience size, 20 million followers, x6, should be making like $120 million a year. Except guess what she's making? Like 10 to 20 million bucks. Why? She did a stupid business, and I don't know her, so like, sorry, Emma. She's much better on the internet than I am. She's better at getting attention. But does anybody know what Emma launched? Coffee. Terrible business. Low margin business, super competitive, hard to ship. You have like shipping costs on top of it, very little differentiation able to it. This is a bad business to launch. And so with a creator that has an incredibly strong audience that's really kind of like raving fans about Emma, she got some bad advice. And so you compare this to, like, I sat down with Mr. Beast's team and I said, why did you guys launch Feastables, a chocolate bar? When was the last, this is the wrong audience, when was the last time any of you guys ate a chocolate bar? Like a whole chocolate bar? Like, does anybody do that anymore? Okay, we got one, just for the record. There's one person in here, great business. And I said, why would you launch that? Why wouldn't you launch a business that has reoccurring revenue without shipping costs that can be accelerated on the internet? Now, their argument is, does anybody know Mr. Beast's audience demographics? 12 to 15-year-olds. And so they're like, they buy chocolate bars. I'm like, I also don't think they buy chocolate bars, but like, that's fine. Mr. Beast is doing just fine. He doesn't need my advice. The point here is, what is the right game that you could play? So 6 levels of content monetization. We're going to talk about the 6 of them, and then we can break down which ones you guys have. I like to call this from the rock to skinny teas. Don't sell skinny teas. We all have seen it. We have seen people with attention sell out for short-term gain. VPNs on YouTube. Why does everybody sell VPNs? If you're doing what the entire crowd does, you're basically monetizing wrong. And so we need to start upping the level of the things that we sell. Here's my philosophy. So I basically said, okay, if I want to start a business, so if I was going to invest in the business of you, what's your name? Chris. If I was going to invest in the business of Chris, I want the laziest, easiest idea that has the best ROI. I don't want to make my life hard. I want to have a framework where every time I start something, I say, what if it was really easy and what if it could make a lot of money? And I want to look for the sliding scale where I am at the high end of both of those. And so there are like 6 ways people make money right now on the internet. I'm going to power through these. Level 1, AdSense. Terrible way to make money. If your main monetization method is AdSense right now, you're doing it wrong. You should not be making money purely by AdSense. You want to take the money, that's great, but this is the worst frame. Why? Because you're like the low man on the totem pole. You basically get the crumbs, YouTube takes the cake, right? So we don't want to do this. The cool part about AdSense is super easy, right? Easy business, not very high ROI. Problem is, these things sell for nothing. So when I start a business, I want to start with the end in mind. If I get into a business, can I sell it at some day? If Chris's face is on his YouTube channel, it's basically unsellable unless you want to get into a contract for the rest of your life. Now, anybody here been a creator for a while and felt burned out and not wanted to be in front of the camera for like a minute or two? Yeah, yeah, right? It's real, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to turn yourself, AKA a job, into a business, and it's not. We got to create real businesses, not have jobs on the internet. Then we got sponsors and custom ads. How many people have worked with sponsors before here? How awesome is it every time? How fun is it? Do you guys just love when T-Mobile tells you, yeah, can you just read these 47 bullet points that will absolutely tank my fucking video, but legal will kill you and you'll be out of contract if you don't do it? It's not a fun game. This is not a fun game to play. The only time this is a fun game to play is when you're so big, you go, this is how we're gonna do it. Take it or leave it. But in the beginning, this is a really not fun game to play. The cool part about it is you can certainly make millions. It's pretty easy, and you can make some cash on it. It's not the best way to do it. Then we got a level 3 game. This is my friend Alex, also in the gym space. Info products. So I thus far have AdSense in my business. I have sponsors in our business very strategically, and I have info products. We are dominated by info products in my business, right? So we have courses, we have masterminds, we have events. Why? Because they're pretty easy to do if you've operated a business before, level 3 easy, but they're only level 3 ROI. Why is that? Because content actually degrades over time. Meaning, what I create today, my course today, will not be worth more in 10 years than it is today, will it? Right? You have to keep updating it. You have to keep changing it. If you buy a house today, will that house probably be worth more in 10 or 20 years? Yes, it probably will. So info products immediately degrade, basically, over time. The second thing is that people don't typically like to buy info products. So if I'm a private equity firm, I don't go out and buy a ton of info products. It's just not a section that they're in. Now we're getting into the higher level. This is where you guys should be listening and starting to think, how could I apply this to my business? One little secret trick I want to tell you guys, anytime I say something here and you think, fuck, that wouldn't work for me. Can't work in my business. I want you to instead take this little frame switch, which is just like, how could this work for me? How could I apply this to my business? The second I did that, my life changed. Here's an example, Jessica Alba, right? Actually, Aubrey Marcus, he's an example too. These are real products. Now, the benefit of real products is you can make hundreds of millions of dollars. They do not degrade in value over time. These are actual businesses that can be transferred. It's not a job. So this is where we start to like these types of businesses. Now, they're not the highest level of content monetization. And how that's determined is when I say multiples down here, that basically means if I sell a business, in my world, I typically sell businesses for a multiple of profit. So my businesses that are in small business land, if I'm doing 100K in profit, I might sell it for 300 to 500K, aka 3 to 5X, right? If you get big enough, you sell for a multiple of revenue. And so in the proprietary IRL products line, that's typically 4 to 7X. If you have a $10 million revenue business, let's say you're Jessica Alba, hers is a lot bigger than that, you might be able to sell for $40 to $70 million, depending on the deal that you do. Level 5. This is where you start playing some serious games. This is Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. Russell Brunson started like all of us here. He was on the internet, he was making videos, he was doing info product, he was doing AdSense. Russell Brunson will be the first person to tell you he's not a tech guy. And yet he runs a tech company called ClickFunnels that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, if not close to $1 billion from his audience monetization. He's playing a smarter game. And what you'll start to find with these guys, the smartest players out there, they realize early that if they get the game right, what do? Does anybody know how Russell Brunson grows his business? Other influencers. Other influencers who haven't figured out a smarter monetization method, pays for their audience attention, and basically grows his business. What does First Form do? First Form was like the original micro influencers. So they basically grow their audience through influencers. Claire, for instance, works with them. They have 15,000 what they call legionnaires that are all out there in the fitness space repping their product. And the interesting part about this is look at these multiples. Software and hardware, we're talking 17 and 15X revenue. Those are serious empire building numbers. Then you get to level 6. Nobody talks about this. This is brilliant. Does anybody know Reese Witherspoon's deal with Hello Sunshine? When I saw this, I was like, oh, she is smart. What Reese Witherspoon did, started a book club, right? Oprah 101, book club, gonna talk about books. But Reese is a deal maker. And so Reese said, hey, I realize now that my books create bestsellers and drive hundreds of thousands or millions of copies bought. So Athena, when I highlight your book in my book club as Reese Witherspoon, I also want to give you this opportunity. I want to give you an opportunity, Athena, for me to have a future right to buy the right for video for your business. So I'm gonna buy your television and movie rights for your book. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, Reese Witherspoon, I love her.
Reese wants to make my thing into a movie or book. This is amazing. Of course, like basically for nothing, tiny little costs, no problem. I want to buy the rights. And then what happens? When books get really big, she goes, okay, I'm gonna exercise that right. Athena, remember when you told me that? Well, now you're a bestseller. Now you have Paramount and all the Hollywood studios coming to you, offering you millions of dollars. You actually realize what this is worth right now, but I have the first right to buy it at my set price. Brilliant. So Reese basically creates a portfolio of these things, calls it Hello Sunshine, wraps up royalties and licensing agreements in them, and sells them to a huge operator, Blackstone, right? And all that is, there's no warehouse with products, there's no huge employee base. It's basically money in the air for licensing and royalty rights. These things, look what these sell for, 20 to 30x. Publishing has the highest multiple level of any industry, higher than SaaS, which I didn't realize until I started doing this analysis. So what I want you guys to think on is, which of these do you not have in your business? I think we spend a lot of time, because I've been a creator for a while now, I would say I spent in the beginning of being a creator, I don't know, 80% creating videos, trying to build my audience, obsessing on that, maybe 2% of my time thinking about the business that I'm selling. And I want you guys to take one weekend, and I want you to pick your smartest friend, and I want you to poke a bunch of bullet holes into your business and figure out which of these could you be best in class at. Now, how to monetize like a Kardashian. I like sometimes hate myself that I have to talk about them like this, but these women are smart, or somebody in their ecosystem is smart on how they monetize. So like, let's give a little respect there. This is also from Night Media. I stole this from them. So basically, here's the exercise that you go through if you want to think about how to make money from your audience. And your audience doesn't have to be big for you to do this. You're the creator, but you find your creator market fit. And to find creator market fit is not that difficult. You basically, if you think about it, Daily Wire came out probably earlier this year and said they had about $200 million in subscription revenue. That doesn't include Jeremy's Razors, which they launched, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I would assume in the tens of millions. And then they launched some sort of chocolate bar. I don't get, what is it with these people at chocolate bars? I gotta ask Ben. They essentially have built this business based on subscriptions and then based on ancillary products that is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that happened probably over a 3-year time period. I thought I'd do this last little part, like what would I do if I was you? If I could take 3 steps today, not knowing anything about your business, so I could be fucking wrong. If I would do anything with your business today, what do I most often see people not doing? 3 things. Here's where I would start if I was you. Low-hanging fruit. So the first thing I would tell you to do is create a newsletter if you don't have one. This is not your sales drip funnel. This is completely different. This is where you use whatever your unique skill as a creator is. It could be 5 Bullet Friday, like Tim Ferriss, 5 bullets of your favorite things. These things sell for multiples. I invested in this company, Beehive, full disclosure, but Beehive is basically like 4 steps to starting a newsletter. So I think people are crazy. If you think that having followers on Facebook, Instagram, definitely not TikTok these days, or YouTube is a safe place for your business to live, you're wrong. You are building somebody else's empire. Those are rented, not owned audiences. And so we have to own our audience. And the only way you can own your audience today is by having individual data through your email list. So if you don't have a newsletter, this is the easiest thing to start. And lots of people on the internet love to tell me like, nobody reads email anymore. Let me tell you, you're wrong. I have 300,000 people on one newsletter. We have a 52% open rate. That email sells more than anything else that we do. We didn't even talk about this on any of our socials. If I was to send out one email to our email list, we could pack a theater. We could pack 1,000, 2,000 people here from the email list.
That's insanely packed.
It is hugely powerful if you cater to it, and you don't have to go crazy on figuring it out. I would just start and play the game. All right, that's one. Here's the cheat code. Now this is really, really important, and most people on the internet would think that this was a snooze, which is almost every business that I've seen that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars has a number 2 that operates, and it's not the creator. Up and to the right, you actually have my friend Kat, who runs Nick Bear's business now. You have to the bottom right, you have Reed, who runs Mr. Beast's business. The Rock, you got Danny Garcia, who used to run his and now runs a lot of the holding companies in tandem. And then obviously you got the GOAT, you got Mama and Baby Kardashian. The reason I say this is because every problem you have is a person, not a tactic. And so your job as a creator is what? To attract attention, except you're playing a level 1 game. The attention we're trying to attract is from a bunch of followers because I'm so smart and I'm gonna be a guru up top. But what you should really be looking for is who are like the 1 to 5 people you could attract that are smarter and better than you at operations, systems, and processes and execution. And you want to have some non-viral videos showing how smart you are and how big of a business you're going to build just to find your goat, your cat, your read. This accelerates a business more than anything else, but most people won't do it because we're so focused on us being the super smart people that we are on the internet. You need somebody who's actually going to make sure the work gets done and probably pull you back. Like, no, not that idea, this idea. This changed my businesses completely. So in every single one of my businesses, in my media business, I have Chris. In my portfolio holding company, I've had April in the past, I had Nikki. So every single one of the businesses needs to have a really solid number two. And if you don't have that, you should spend the next 30 days doing one thing: find your number two. That's the biggest accelerator. What I would impress upon each of you is, do you ever feel this sense of fear and urgency that you won't stay relevant forever? That this won't continue, that the business won't keep growing, that what if this stops? And what I will say is, in the attention economy, that's true. You should believe that little voice inside that makes you scared that you won't stay relevant forever, because this is one of the few things that's true. Unless you build a business that is not reliant on you and your face for sales, you do not have a real business. And so believe that little voice and take the steps now while you guys are still at the top of your game. How many 65-year-old YouTubers are there? You guys watch a lot of their content? Yeah, me neither. So I'm really honest about the fact that this game won't last forever. So let's play the game intensely while we can. And then the thing that stuck with me the most from Andy is this idea of long-term games with long-term people. How can you find a few people in your company that you can build something bigger than yourself, so when you're tired, you can actually take a break, that don't want to be the face, but want to support the mission? And how can you build a dream so big that you replace other people's dreams? Because that's what happens when you get employees. They have their own hopes and dreams. Don't you think they want to be the CEO? Don't you think they want to make decisions? You have to build something, a vision so big that they are willing to give up on their dreams because yours is better. And you do that all day with your audience. What would happen if you did that inside of your business? Your business will completely change. It'll never be the same. Then you'll come back here and you'll say, thank you, Cody. And it'll be really great for me.
You'll make more money once you realize failure is just the entry price to eventual success. Respect is earned, not given. I wasn't deserving of respect, and if you're not getting respect right now, it might be because you need to have a little bit more dangerous of a demeanor. Sometimes a chip on your shoulder is worth more than a pat on the back. Stay cool on the surface, baby. Paddle like hell. Never apologize for trying really, really hard. Having a job is hard. Having a business is hard. Choose your heart. That thing in front of you at this moment that you think is going to break you might actually be the thing that is going to catapult you to the next level of the game. Welcome back to the Big Deal Podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. I want to talk to you vulnerably today about all the ways I've lost, the lessons I've learned in it, so you can get more comfortable with the truth and thus win more. If you're not failing enough and big enough, you'll never really win. So without further ado, welcome to the official Codie Sanchez Lowlight Reel, where I can teach you all the lessons and you can skip my scars. If you didn't get into the school that you wanted to get into, don't worry, I was the exact same way. In fact, I applied to all the big names, the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yales. And shocking, I got into none of them. In fact, I barely got into Arizona State University, Harvard of the West, some might say. I think the only reason that didn't cripple me at that time was I had no money to go anywhere else. And so I went to Arizona State, and that actually ended up being the biggest win that I ever could have. What do you mean by that? Well, 60,000 students meant that I had to navigate not being that important, being a number. Nobody cared about me. Nobody was checking up on me. I wasn't special at all. And that meant that I worked really hard. I had 3 degrees by the end of it. I got a grant from the Howard Buffett Foundation, because when you're not special, but you have a chip on your shoulder, you have the opportunity to prove everybody wrong. And sometimes a chip on your shoulder is worth more than a pat on the back. So then, you might think, well, maybe it gets better afterwards. And once you're done with college, you're going to figure it out. Everything's going to be fine. Well, if you're like me, I had no jobs, you guys. Senior year of college, I had no jobs. I was too busy partying, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, going to frat and sorority things. And the only people that wanted to hire me were like the Associated Press for $18,000, which even back then was not enough money. And I was pretty scared. I thought I was going to have to move back in with mom and dad. I was super embarrassed. But maybe that thing that is your biggest fear leads you to do the irrational thing you would not have done otherwise. If I had an easy job come across my plate, maybe I wouldn't have pushed myself to do the irrational thing, which is I went to a finance conference. I sat next to a woman. She ended up being a recruiter for one of the biggest companies in finance in the world. It's called Vanguard. And I just got curious. Your willingness to ask questions and look stupid while everybody else tries to position themselves, especially when you're young, is what's going to make you stand out. The older you get, the more you realize you don't really know anything. And the younger you are, and the more you try to look like you know everything, the more foolish you actually look. So I sat next to her and was like, I don't understand anything. What do you guys do? How does that work? How does this go? What happened? She gave me a job offer. That job offer made like 3x more than my 18K, which was a lot at the time. And every single other person in this program, it's called an accelerated development program, every single other person in it, they went to the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yale. I was the only public school little kid nerd who was also a sorority girl in it. And if you've ever seen how like ducks look really calm on the surface, but they're paddling like crazy underneath it, that was me. So if that is you right now, that's okay. Stay cool on the surface, baby. Paddle like hell. Never apologize for trying really, really hard. That's what I certainly did. And I thought maybe I'd made it at Vanguard. But then what's going to happen is you're going to feel like this climb that you're on. Every single time you hit to the top, you hit the first peak, there's a big cliff on the other side. There's a ravine you have to go back down. My ravine was, at the end of that year process, you had to find your own job inside of Vanguard. And so they didn't just like give you another job after you went through the program. Somebody had to choose you inside of the company to come stay and work in their division. And I came up with an idea for the company. I brought it to the head of my division. The guy's like, cool, this seems like a cool idea. And then what happened? Well, he pulls me back in a couple hours later. I think I'm getting this job. He's like, we've cleared it. This is going to be awesome. You're going to go do this thing that you really want to do at our other campus. I'm like, great. He pulls me back in and he sits me down. I'm all excited. I've called my parents. I've told them already, like, what if I have to move to this new place, do this thing? And he goes, what do you think your colleagues think about you? And I was like, what? I thought we were talking about this job that I came up with and this cool thing that I could do. It's like, what do you think they think about you? I'm like, Ron, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, can you explain to me? And he goes, well, your colleagues think that you would leave dead bodies behind you to get ahead. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like metaphorically, physically, I was like 110 pounds soaking wet back then. And I'm trying not to cry, candidly, because I don't know what to say to that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he basically said, well, you never come to the group lunches. You never plan group activities. Apparently when people come to your desk, you're like too busy to talk to them. They think that you're too good for them. Little did he know that the reason why I was doing all those things was because I was drowning. Like there were all these smart people who had finance degrees. I was like a journalism background trying to figure out how to keep up with Harvard and Stanford and Yale. And so, yeah, I wasn't like party planning because I was dying on the inside. So at the end, he said, so that job that you want to have, we're actually going to give it to this other person. And I remember going home and I was crying. I was super embarrassed. I didn't want to tell my parents because I had like proactively told them I was going to do this whole thing. But what's fascinating about that is if you flash forward 7 years, that same person who took that job from me, who's awesome and a friend now, she became my COO at another company. She worked for me. And so thankfully, the fact that they had been like, no, because you're not nice enough, you don't smile enough, you don't party plan, Cody, we're not going to give you this job. I was like, fuck you guys, I'm out then. Okay, fine. Not even like a couple weeks later, a recruiter calls me for the best company in the world in finance and investing at the time. It's called Goldman Sachs. And when I tell you that like normal kids like me didn't work at Goldman Sachs, like you don't have like a dad who didn't go to college and a mom who was a special education teacher and go to Arizona State and go work at Goldman Sachs. Like that just does not happen. So when the recruiter called me about this, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take this call. And I had such a big chip on my shoulder that I went ham through the interview process. I did everything you could humanly imagine. And I ended up making 3x my salary again. And that took me to Chicago and New York for one of the best investment banking firms in the world. What I learned from my mentor at Goldman Sachs that helped me get the next job was that no matter what you do, if you do one thing right, which is control what gets into your brain, control the inputs and what you consume, that leads to your outputs, aka how you succeed. And since I learned that, I've been obsessed with making sure I only listen to things that feed me. things like this podcast. So if you're not already subscribed, this is your moment to do it, to steal all of my rich mentors' homework, like my mentor from Goldman Sachs, and make sure that you're not filling your brain with things that aren't going to give you the success you want in life. And so if you aren't already subscribed, if you're not already following us, if you're part of the 60% of humans that never achieve what they want to achieve fully, I would change that. And I would subscribe to the podcast. The lesson is, when you can get around people who are smarter than you, do it every chance you get, especially when it makes you uncomfortable. You become what you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with a bunch of people who aren't winning, who don't make any money, who aren't happy, who aren't married, who aren't having sex, guess what you ain't doing? None of those things. So thankfully, I went to Goldman Sachs, and again, it was this group of people who lived in worlds I've never understood. That was the first time I heard the term, we summer somewhere. I was like, we summer? I was like, I think everybody summers. There's like a summer, and it's a fall, there's this like a thing. What are you talking about? Then I heard all these fancy words, and people live, lives where they went to international schools. I didn't leave the country except to go to Mexico, probably when my parents didn't know it, until I was well out of college. I start working in Goldman. I climb my way up the ladder, and I'm the little duck paddling underwater like a crazy person. And what I learned there is, half the time, it's not what you know. It's not how you're doing. It's who you know, and even more, who knows you. I was working like crazy. And when I went to go to get promotion from kind of the miserable job that it is when you become an analyst, that's the low guy on the totem pole at Goldman Sachs, to trying to get to the next level of the game, it was like rejected, rejected, rejected. And I remember all these people getting ahead of me, and they were really good at a thing you should never feel bad for doing, which is self-promotion if you are good for real things you did. And I remember being pretty jealous at that time about a bunch of other people. And I was like, man, maybe it's me, maybe it's not everybody else. But thankfully, that led me to do some pretty crazy things. I ended up not asking my boss for permission and going to another boss in another division in another part of the company and saying, I want to come work here. I want to come work there. When I kept getting turned down, I kept going. Finally, one of them says yes to me. I'm like, sick. My boss sucks, but this person sees I'm great. And my boss shuts it down. He's like, I don't care that other person wants you. Again, I'm going to fill it with somebody else. I was like, son of a gun, I'm really doing something wrong here. So what happened? I leave. But where do I go? I'm like, well, this time I am apparently relatively unemployable. And so if you are also unemployable, just know that most entrepreneurs, the reason for your success will be a bad former boss. And so it's okay if you're semi-unemployable, if you don't like the people that you've worked with before. Have a little introspection to make sure if everybody's an asshole, what do we know? You probably are. So I'm sure I was in many ways back then. But then I went to State Street. And the way I went to State Street was different. This time I was like, okay, I want to be a boss. Not the boss, but a boss. I want to manage people. I want to lead a team. And I want to see if I'm any good at this. And are they bad, or am I like unleadable? And so I wasn't really qualified for that at the time. And the best way to get something you are unqualified for is to show, don't tell, is to do proof of work, not proof of resume. And so what did I do? I went out to State Street. I looked at all these jobs they had outstanding. There was one that I thought I could do, which was in Latin America. And I put together an entire business plan. Here's how I would run this division. Here's the client list I would go after. Here's the scripts I would use. Here's the product I would sell. Here's the people I would hire for my team. Here was my budget. I just put together, I did all the work. And I still didn't get the job. And then I did it 3 different times for 3 different people and 3 different roles at State Street, until I swear to God, one of the guys finally called me and he goes, are you this Codie Sanchez girl that is calling all of us? And I said, yeah. I go, can you imagine what I'm going to do for you when I do this when I don't get paid? What do you think I'm going to do for you when I do get paid? And he was honestly worn down, like a sad dad, after the kids just beating him up. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. He gives me a job. That job was pretty incredible because that was the first time I got to run my own little team. I got to have people report into me. But if you think I was good at it at first, you're out of your mind. I remember the first time I had to fire somebody, which was my first employee too, whose name was Ryan. Sorry, Ryan. And Ryan was straight up Bostonian. I lived in Boston at the time. And I remember nobody respected me. Respect is earned, not given. I wasn't deserving of respect. And if you're not getting respect right now, it might be because you need to have a little bit more dangerous of a demeanor. It might be because you're not that impactful of an enemy, so you can't be a very good ally. And that was me. I wasn't really I wasn't really dangerous on either side of the coin. And so Ryan respected me about as little as a human could. And I remember one day we're at an event and he looks at me and I'm his boss. And he's like, you got any tattoos? And he's Bostonian, so he has an accent. And I at the time did not. And I'm like, I do not, Ryan. And he's like, I got one. I'm like, that's cool. I'm excited for you. And he's like, you want to know what it is? I'm like, I feel like you're going to tell me. And he responds, it's a squirrel reaching right up towards my. And I was like, Ryan, what the did you just, are you, he goes, my nutsack. You get it? I was like, I do. I in fact do get it. Then he proceeds to ask me if I slept with anybody to get this job. And at that point, I'm like, we are backsliding here. This is not working out very well. He also proceeds to like not come in with these elaborate stories about why I'm getting in trouble because I got this liability on my hands. And it took me having the balls to do a thing that's like not very well lauded on the internet, which is tell somebody they're not a fit for your company. Like if you want to get hated quickly, go tell somebody that was hard for you to fire somebody on the internet. It doesn't go over very well. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to make crazy amounts of money, you're going to have to do something irrationally difficult. Your bank account is a reflection of this, of the difficult decisions that you've made and the difficult conversations that you've had. The more difficult conversations you have, the higher the bank account you will eventually have. So that was my first little lesson. I was like, all right, now I got to figure out how to get somebody here who would actually, who I could be worthy of their respect. And I got to live up to that. So then I'm looking to leave State Street, Boston's amazing place. What up, Bostonians? Tell me if I got any of you guys who listen. But it's cold as fuck. And I'm from Arizona. And so I was so cold. I had lived in like New York and Chicago and Boston. Also highly recommend, if you stay in the place that you were born, it is really hard to change the human who you were. Move often. See who you are. You can always go back, but at some point it's hard to leave. So see what it's like when you uproot your tree. So I was ready to leave Boston because I'm a wuss and it was too cold. And I'm looking for my next role. And so I want to switch into a different part of finance. And for you guys, I don't know if you've ever, like, you want to get to this next level, but like you can't see the bridge between the two. It's too far. Like you're like, how do I get this ladder from where I am to what I want to be? What I want to be is like not reasonable for where I'm at, but I want to get there. And that was me. And that's when I really wanted to break into private equity. And so there's one firm at the time that was doing it really well. They're called Credit Suisse. They're not around as much anymore. But I wanted to work at Credit Suisse and I wanted to run this division there like I was at State Street. And I had to interview in 3 continents with 12 different people. I had to pay and fly myself out to those locations to get the job. I still remember the way the guy laughed at me when I told him that I went to Arizona State. He thought it was a joke. He was like, because I made the Harvard of the West joke. He goes, oh, you did go to Harvard? I'm like, no, bro, I did go to Arizona State. Yeah. I got 3 degrees. He goes, do all of them combined equal a real one? I was like, this is going well. I think he likes me. I think we're probably going to get hired. Shocking, I don't get the job at Credit Suisse. And I'm actually kind of ticked because at that point, I was really qualified. Like I already had the client list. I spoke multiple languages, English and Spanish. I knew the territory. I was already covering it. And they hire this other person. And I'm like devastated. But inside of the thing that I wanted more than anything else was that line from the Garth Brooks song, which is sometimes you should thank God for unanswered prayers. Because what that led to was me building my very first $1 billion in assets under management business in Latin America. I could have gone and been somebody else's employee, or I could have built my own company. And the reason why, again, a chip on a shoulder so big, it feels bigger than any back pat. So I go to a company called First Trust, which is awesome. And I'm loving it and I'm building like crazy. And then I get divorced. And I'm like, everything's going so good. Total destruction of my life. Lose all my friends. Lose my house. Lose a bunch of money. Feel awful. I'm so embarrassed. We work together at the same firm. That was a real blast. I'm like the only female, not to play the woman card, but it is true. I'm the only female that runs a division there, and all the rest are dudes. So who do you think they like more? Spoiler, not this one. So Anyway, they all side with him. I'm still there. It's a total nightmare. And yet I have built this big, huge business where like nothing had been built before. So I was like, you're gonna have to pry this out of my cold, dead fingers. I was like, what do I do? Now I have to like walk away from this huge thing that I built, or I have to like see him every day and kind of get these comments. And I remember like one of them in particular, one of the MDs, I will show it to you. We'll put you, if you see this in the YouTube video, I'll put it up there. I keep it to this day. One of the other, kind of directors like I was, sent me an email real late at night one night. And it just said, you are dumbing down the firm. I'm glad you're happy, but you're ruining the mission that we're on. Something to that effect. You can see the exact words here. You're dumbing down the firm. That's the part that I remember more than anything else. And I remember thinking, motherfucker, like, I'm too tired for this. Like, I'm tired. I'm beat up. It hurts. My heart hurts. I just feel like I'm getting kind of attacked on all sides. And I'm like, I'm just going to give it up. I'm going to leave. And I talked to a couple other people at the firm. They're like, you're crazy. You can't leave. You built this all up. Like, you already lost all this other stuff. You're going to lose this too. So instead, I start dabbling in my side hustles, my little side hobbies. And like, they start growing. And I start that's just when I start buying companies. If you know anything about what I do online now, I started buying up these little companies. And I realized whoa, thank God I didn't buy these while I was married, because that motherfucker would own part of them. So I was like, that's sick. Okay, now I got these side things that are actually making me a ton of money. That helped because, I'm expensive. And so I was like, I can't leave this firm and not have any money, and I don't want to live on my couch, and I like nice things. And I think they lie to you guys when they say that you have to live on your couch in order to have success. I do not think you have to do that. I think you have to do very hard things, but I don't think you have to go to the point of bankruptcy and breaking and all of that in order to win. And so these things are like making some money. I'm like, this is cool. What a win. If I hadn't gotten divorced, if him and I hadn't gone through that, if all those people at the firm weren't really mean to me, I wouldn't have tried to get a little safety raft going. Then, of course, what happens? I start getting a little notoriety. Like, they're covering Codie Sanchez doing this in Latin America. I'm on a magazine cover. That's cool. Well, the CEO comes to me and says, I want to take a walk, which, spoiler, you guys, not a great sign ever. So I'm like, oh God, I'm fired. And he takes me on a walk, and he basically says, at this company, we get rich quietly, Codie. And I thought, why can't we get rich together? Why can't we all talk about what we're doing? I totally disagreed with him. He's like, well, listen, I got a boat, and on this boat, we're rowing left. And if you want to row right, you got to get your own boat, but you can't stay on mine. And now as a CEO, I understand it. Back then, I was like, who do you think you are? But I get it. He's right. Those weren't my chips. That wasn't my boat. He has every right to go the direction that he wants. So I had to leave the company. I basically got pushed out. But you know what that led to? I went to another company. I raised $100 million for that company. And we had a huge fund in an industry that historically didn't. I got 3 new partners. I was no longer a director, which is like a level here. I was a partner, baby. I was in the game. I was a player. And that was awesome. And we had one fund and it had incredible returns. And then we have another fund and it's doing great. And I think I'm kind of on high, right? And at each stage of these, you guys, my network stacking up, it goes down a little bit, goes back up higher, goes down a little bit, but even higher. And then at this stage, I do a thing that I really hope you do consistently, which is I tell them, I think we need to take money off the table. We're winning. We're winning big. And if you learn one thing about money, it should be save some for when it stops shining. You need to have a little cash for a rainy day. And so I was like, man, guys, we're doing so well. We're crushing it. I don't think this is sustainable. I think we better put some cash on the side and move it over. And I remember I was the youngest of the 3. There were 2 ladies at the time, but I was the youngest by far. And they were like, you're out of your mind. This is going to the moon. We're going to crush it. Don't keep talking. We have more experience. We've seen this before. And I push and I push and I push, and they wouldn't listen to me. And so I was pretty upset, and I let that be known. And I thought I was right. And then one of my employees calls me, and he's, what's up, LJ? If you hear this, LJ's the man. And LJ calls me and he's like, hey, I think they're going to fire you. I was like, they can't fire me. I own part of this place. What do you mean fire me? He's like, they're like digging up, trying to find something on you so that they can push you out because you think that we should do X and you're really pushing for that investment committee. They don't think your vision's aligned with theirs. I'm like, well, first of all, a truth that I've come to agree with, which is when you have something hard to say it to somebody's face. No matter what, you will have more respect for not going around somebody else's back and instead having the cojones, as we would say in Spanish, to say it straight up. So I thanked LJ and then I got invited to a dinner with one of the partners. Now, I'm not very scary. You can see me. But my husband is scary. He is a former Navy SEAL. And not only does he have the scariest of Navy SEAL resting bitch faces, he is also jacked and a pretty big dude and also knows a lot about weapons, like an odd amount about weapons. And everybody knew that at my firm. But I knew the guy that was going to try to pull this one over on me, where he was going to try to sort of strong arm me out of the company at this dinner and try to tell me like, he kind of thought he could intimidate me, I think, which to be fair, you guys, throughout your entire life, there will be people that try to use their intimidation, their aggression, their whatever to make you feel less than. And when that happens, you have to figure out, is this a moment that I hold a wall or am I made of paper? And those moments where you stand up and you realize that you are not made of paper, they're the moments where life really changes. I remember shaking on the way to this dinner. It was actually here in Austin at a hotel, and Chris came with me. And so I was like, here's my plan. He thinks I'm going to come to dinner, just me and him. And he's going to try to, like he usually does, either yell at me or intimidate me or blackmail me. I don't know what's going to happen. And you're going to come, Chris. And you're not going to say anything, except you're just going to sit there and look scary. And then if he doesn't let me talk, like he sometimes doesn't let me talk, you're just going to put your hand on his shoulder and you're going to say, I'm going to need you to let my wife speak. And he's going to be scared. And when I tell you the joy of my life that happened to you guys, when we get to this hotel, we go to stand in there. This gent, who I won't say his name, sees me. I see his eyes flare because he sees Chris too. And then he comes up, oh, hi, hugs, hugs, hugs. And then goes, you know what? I gotta go to the bathroom really quickly. And I peek around the corner and I watch as he gets on the phone. I'm sure to call the other partners and go, oh no, Codie's husband's here. I don't know if this is going to go exactly the way we want to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to strong arm her. I don't know what they actually said. Anyway, we come back out and I lay it on the table. And I'm like, he starts talking about something. And I'm like, my mom has a great line. She says, 99.9% of the time, when I ask you a question, I already know the answer. You have the ability to tell me a truth or a lie here. Your choice. And his face was like, what? And so then I told him, I know that you're trying to push me out of the company. Don't ask me how I know it. I know you're trying to dig up something to make me look like the bad guy. And it's not going to happen. So you have two options. One, you get out of the way and you resign. Or two, you give me a buyout option. But there's no three. So it's one or two. And he's like, well, you can't force that. And I said, I think my attorney can. And so we can choose. That non-paper wall led me to the very first time, you guys, maybe past any point that normal entrepreneurs do it, doing something completely on my own. For 15 years, I had worked for other people. I'd worked with other people. I had done stuff with other people in finance, and I didn't really love the people in finance. And this was the first time that big, scary moment where I almost got pushed out, where he tried to blindside me, turned into me putting up a not paper wall. And if you think it all gets better, the second that you have your own business, I'm going to let you in to a surprise. Having a job is hard. Having a business is hard. Choose your heart. Having a partner is hard. Not having a partner is hard. Choose your hard. Everything is hard. So even though I started then my own company and built that company profitably and grew it a ton and had more success than I'd ever had in my entire life and more freedom than I'd ever had in my entire life, I also had more pain than I'd ever had in my entire life. At one point, I had a partner who wanted to stop working, but wanted to keep part of my main company. The only way that I could get him to stop is I had to pay him $1 million. I had to go through lawsuits and back and forth and gnarly letters until finally I said, I will pay you $1 million to just leave. Just like stop working because you're just in the way of everything. Just get out of here and here's $1 million. So that was my first probably $1 million payout. And so it doesn't get easier as you get bigger, but you do start to build up this armor of no's and can'ts and shoulds until eventually it almost stops bothering you. Eventually, you won't get bothered by the things that bother you today. Like there's some magic that happens the more you get in entrepreneurship. It's like lifting in the gym. In the beginning, maybe 5 pounds, kind of a lot. Then it's 10, then it's 15, then it's 20. Then at some point you cannot even reconcile that 5 pounds used to be enough because you keep having gains and gains and gains. And it is the same thing in the game of success, money, life, and business. The more difficulty you have, the more burden you can carry. I don't ever think it gets easier. You just get better. And so you shouldn't ask for an easier path. You should ask for the ability to shoulder more. Those are what my prayers sound like. It doesn't sound like, give me all this money, make it easier for me. It usually sounds like, give me the strength and confidence to believe that this is possible for me. Give me the ability to do this task or to learn more intelligently until I can. Please don't give me problems and tasks that I cannot handle right now, but give me the ability to learn how to handle the ones that I do have. And then, like at some point, in your life, you will have a moment in which you think you will lose everything you have built. You know, when you're young, you actually don't have much to lose. You have something called ego risk that you could lose, reputational risk that you could lose. But you don't actually have a mortgage and kids and finances and overhead at your company. You don't have all this big, huge risk that's hard to understand when you're young. But eventually you will. I've never met an entrepreneur that hasn't had a moment that almost broke them. And usually the joke when I tell that story is somebody in the crowd will go, only one? Because you're going to have many moments like that. And this was one such moment where I had built the company, I was doing all the things, but I had another member of my company running some of the finances. That person was either inept, incompetent, or fraudulent. And I didn't realize it, but we were a few weeks away from being completely out of money. I am talking about employees that I couldn't pay. I am talking about having to shut it down. I'm talking about complete and utter loss and so much fear about what that would look like, especially when you wrap up your identity into what you were, a business owner, a CEO, or whatever. And I was so scared for that to happen. And I remember, I've told this story before, but I remember talking to my dad at that point and saying, what do you do when you don't know where to go? You don't know what to do. You don't know who to talk to next. And he calls that your head in the hands moment, when you're sitting alone on the couch in the dark with no idea what to do next. And he said, you're not in the game if you haven't had that moment. You're not in the game of success if you haven't felt completely lost, if you haven't felt like you were going to lose it all, if you haven't been completely mortified at the idea that you might not make it. If you have, then you're in the game, baby. But if you haven't, then you aren't taking big enough risks. That one little risk, I think without it, all of the companies I have today, all of the opportunity would have never been there, because you cannot have financial success with multiple zeros if you have no system of oversight to make it. Almost losing everything built the foundation to make sure I never do that again. Almost losing everything meant that I understood how to run a real company, not how to have hope, luck, and a prayer. So that thing in front of you at this moment that you think is going to break you might actually be the thing that is going to catapult you to the next level of the game. There's a quote that I love by Austin Butler, and I want to play it for you here.
I was at a party once and I was dancing and they said, embarrassment is an underexplored emotion. Go out there and make a fool of yourself. Go for it. Like, feel that feeling, the fear of cringe.
That's really
go
good.
out there and do it.
The truth of the matter is, you shouldn't be scared about failing. You should be scared about looking back at yourself 10 years from now and thinking, I haven't changed at all. Take the big leap, do the thing, because the only real failure is never actually trying. And it's not just me that says this about failure. Listen to Kobe Bryant, the man himself.
If you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, if I fail today, I'm going to learn something from that failure and I'm going to try again on Tuesday.
What I love about that quote is he's right. He does it for the love of the game, not the win or loss of the game.
of companies pay tens of thousands of dollars for software you can generate a Replit for $5 literally.
You are going to love this episode. It is with Amjad Masad, who is the CEO of Replit, one of the fastest growing AI companies out there. He is going to blow your mind and maybe help you blow up your bank account.
Before everyone in the world learns that this technology exists, you have a moment where it's like an opportunity to capture a lot of value from it.
Do you think that it is now possible for a single individual, in the case of a few weeks, who has zero coding experience, to build $1 million business with Replit?
Yeah. So we have,
That's wild.
I was talking to someone who works in venture capital. He goes into Replit building his dream platform to manage his investments. He got commitments for 5 million ARR before he quit his job.
Wow.
Now more than ever, finding businesses that are running inefficiently and going into these businesses and figure out where to plug in AI and make it a lot more profitable, even without growing.
Welcome back to the Big Deal Podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. Today, if you want to make money online and you want to do it building with code and are curious about AI, but even if you've never coded before, buckle up for this episode because I'm obsessed. So I've been so excited for this podcast because I'm sort of a tech Neanderthal, but I've been going down a rabbit hole of AI. I hired a guy who's actually good at it. And it almost feels to me like there's a world before I realized all the things we could do online, and now there's a world afterwards. And almost everything my employees do, everything I do in business, I'm like, wow, why are we doing it the way we did last year? Because it almost doesn't make sense anymore. And what's crazy to me about you is you figured this out at like 6? I think, like, is it a true story that when you were 6 years old in Jordan, you were already coding and building software apps?
Yeah. So my father got a computer before anyone I knew back in Amman and Jordan in the early 90s. And so one of my really earliest vivid memories was standing behind the shoulders on my dad, kind of unboxing this machine, pulling out this huge manual, open it up, and you had to read a manual. There's no internet at the time, and sort of finger typing on the keyboard. And I was just fascinated by it. This idea that you can like talk to this machine and like convey what you want to build and you can build it. I'm still, it's just still gives me goosebumps. So just the idea of like creation, being able to be creative without a lot of resources, or, you don't have to build a real physical thing. All you need is this machine. And so I got into it immediately and started building apps. The first thing that I built was a math teaching app for my younger brother. So it will be like a, formula, 1 + 1 = blank. He puts in 2, he gets a clap. He puts in 3, he gets a boo. And it worked out. Now he works for me. So.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. I don't know what kind of Wheaties they had in Jordan, but that's like, I had, Lincoln Logs and Legos. But then, what's kind of crazy is then you had a 180 basically from that, which is it true that afterwards, not so long ago, you actually turned down $1 billion as an acquisition price for your company when you only had 6 employees? What happened?
Yeah. We had started the company in 2016, and the mission behind the company is to create 1 billion coders, 1 billion programmers, 1 billion developers, whatever you want to call it. And I just felt in my heart of hearts that we're at a point where anyone can make software. I felt like the AI is progressing really fast, just the cloud systems, everything that was coming online made it so that anyone could really be able to do this thing that have fundamentally changed my life. Got me from Jordan in a sort of lower income family all the way to the US, become an entrepreneur, joining Y Combinator, the most prestigious startup accelerator. And in 2018, just after we did Y Combinator, we kind of bootstrapped for a couple of years. Then we did Y Combinator. Maybe 2019, we got this acquisition offer from a really big company. And obviously it was a lot of money, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I just felt like they're gonna take the company, not gonna do anything interesting with it, and I'll make the money, and maybe I'll quit 2 or 3 years after that and create the same company. So I thought, I like this company, I might as well keep going. And I always felt like if we get to a point where we achieve even 1% of our mission, this could be a much bigger company. And we achieved that valuation a few years ago, and the company is probably valued more today.
Walk me through that moment. So you get an offer, you meet a guy. I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
And did you seriously contemplate it? Were you like, I need to sleep on this?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't like a knee-jerk reaction, kind of like $1 billion. I'm just gonna. And I talked to our investors, and I remember talking to Mark Andreessen, who's invented the web browser Netscape, and he's now running Andreessen Horowitz, a very prestigious investment firm. They hadn't just invested in Replit. He goes, look, we'll pocket the profit. We just invested in you, and we're going to make a lot of money. But what do you want? Like, what are you going to do afterwards? Do you want to go work for this big tech company and become like corporate employee, or do you want to keep going on your mission? And I talked to a bunch of other people, and I kind of felt like the weight of Silicon Valley was on my shoulder. Like everyone really believed in what we're doing, and I didn't want to let people down. I also just kind of didn't want to let our users down, our customers, our dreams. And I also felt like I have the kind of skills to always be able to make good living. And I think, we all know that after a certain level of wealth, your life doesn't really change all that much. And so I like money. I don't want to make it seem like I think money is a great thing. I think it gives you a lot of freedom and comfort in order to achieve more things. And I think the thing that I'm most attracted to is building great things.
Yeah. Yeah, because, it's not like now Replit seems like this gargantuan, right? Like $100 million in annual recurring revenue. I look at your little chart and just, whoa. I mean, it's pretty wild to look at. But it took you 9 years to even get to your first $10 million in revenue, right? Like you weren't really making any money at all for multiple years.
Yeah.
You were burning cash.
That's right.
First your own, then a little bit of YC, then a little bit of third-party investors. It's not like this was an overnight success at all.
No.
And so I'm curious, did you ever have a moment where you were like, we are not going to make it, and I'm not good enough, and this company's not going to work out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in 2024, early 2024, so last year, the company had not been growing all that much. We're kind of hit a plateau and started decreasing a little bit. So we were in this awkward position where we make it easy enough to get started, but not enough to get you all the way to building a business or a real piece of software. And because our focus is on getting everyone to make applications, anyone with a dream, without any skill or background in computer science, should be able to come to Replit and make an app. That was always the kind of the core of the mission. We're also not very good for professional developers because they needed all these tools that we didn't have. And so we were in this like awkward middle and not making any revenue, and have this really large staff, 130 people, had raised $200 million. And as you talk about it in the book, like, there are businesses that you could build that provide a lot of, profit and good living for yourself, and you have complete, control of what you do. But once you take on venture capital, there's almost a contract you're implicitly kind of getting into, which is, I'm going to build $1 billion company. I'm going to build something really scalable, really big. And I take that responsibility seriously as well. So I felt like the only way to really achieve our mission and for the business to take off is to invent an automated coder so that you go to Replit and you really don't have to learn to code at all. And so we lay off almost half the team. Oof. We move out of San Francisco because San Francisco is such a bubble. I'm sure kind of LA is the same here, but everyone's talking all the time. There's FOMO all the time. Everyone's going to like parties, and we move out of San Francisco. We go down to the South Bay. We get this office in the suburbs, and we're like, okay, we're going to spend 3-4 months trying to invent this new thing. And we felt that technology is sort of getting there in terms of AI. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, like, I don't know what I'm going to do afterwards. Maybe look for an acquisition or something like that. And it wouldn't have been a pretty nice acquisition. It wouldn't have been $1 billion acquisition. So we start building it. And I think even 2 weeks in, we felt like we had something that could change the world. And so we launched in September 2024, and it was the first coding agent on the market where you can just like put a prompt and it will like make you an application. It will create a database for you. It will like put it out, deploy it, and scale it for you, do all of that. And it went viral. And we just put out like a small video, very low production on a cell phone, and it went super viral. And our revenue that year climbed to 10 million ARR. And then when we got out of beta and the agent got really good, that's when we went to 100 million ARR in a matter of 6-7 months.
That's wild. You know, what's interesting though, and why I was so attracted to what you do is because it could sound corny to say, I want to create 1 billion coders. You know, you're like, okay, Silicon Valley, typical mission, put 1 billion in front of it. Yeah, exactly. Except I've used the product and like not an ad, but it's incredible, especially for somebody who's really not tech advanced. And I really associated to it because I think, our mission at Contrarian Thinking is to create millions of owners. And I think that sounds cheesy to people who would rather have, I don't know, a couple $1 billion in assets under management as an investment firm instead. And I think there are a lot of people that say, no, people who want AI just want to concentrate all the power.
Yeah.
And you're kind of doing the opposite of it. So why don't you explain to people what exactly Replit is and why it's revolutionary, and maybe even how could somebody use it today to change their life?
Yeah. Look, technology had always had two visions. The massive centralized mega corporation, mega government, surveillance state vision, the dystopian future, that's sort of like the Matrix and all these different movies. But there was always also a vision of the sort of the hacker in their basement that are building amazing thing, or the startup founders in their garage, or the Bitcoin crypto hackers who can like create systems of money and encryption outside of the control of governments and things like that. So that vision existed always. And at any given time, like when the internet started, it started as this idea of decentralized, empower the people thing. And then over time, we centralized on kind of a few big tech companies and things like that. And now we're at a moment of time where there could be another shift. And that shift could send us into more centralization or bring back power to people so that we can have more owners, more founders, more entrepreneurs, a more dynamic economy. And this is what I'm really passionate about. So what Replit is, it's an automated AI coder. So everyone has ideas. Like I talk to Uber drivers all the time. Everyone has an idea. Everyone is kind of everyone in any field, they are domain experts, right? But they usually do not have the coding skills in order to build an online business or some kind of business using technology because they don't have the skills. So they usually go and they try to find an agency to do it for them. And they get quoted an enormous amount of money, hundreds of thousands, $1 million we sometimes hear. And they give up on that dream because who has that kind of money? Some people go into debt and they still get screwed by the freelancers and all of that. Or their ideas are maybe perhaps need a lot of iteration and they don't have the money for it. So you go to Replit, you put in start with a simplified version of your idea, get an MVP or a prototype, minimum viable product, and you're going to see the AI coder coding in front of you. It'll spend 10 minutes kind of researching, showing you the design. Once you approve the design, it will start building the application, and you'll get a prototype in a matter of 10 minutes. And then you look at it and it'll say, I like this. It has this functionality. Okay, let's add let's change the color of this button, but also let's add an entirely new feature to the website. And I'll spend another 5 minutes working on this and getting it done for you. And then, you can spend weeks building that business and then launching it. And we hear from entrepreneurs that the other day I was talking to someone who works in venture capital. This is what I was talking about, where everyone has domain knowledge. This VC, he's not even on the investing team, he's on the sort of finance team. understands all the problems and woes of managing a portfolio of companies. And they buy all sorts of software. None of the software works for them, right? I'm sure you can relate.
Yep.
And so he goes into Replit, spends weeks, nights and weekends, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, building his dream platform to manage his investments. And then he realizes that he has a business on his hands. And he goes and talks to different finance people at different VC companies. They all have the same problems. And he starts showing them software, and everyone was like, we want to buy it now. And he got commitments for 5 million ARR before he quit his job. So in a matter of weeks, he had a business on his hand, and now he quit his job and he has the contracts and the money is flowing in. So everyone has this. Think about it as, when Airbnb came on the scene, they found this asset that wasn't monetized. Everyone has space in their home that wasn't monetized. I think everyone has domain knowledge that is not monetized. And the way to monetize that domain knowledge, to scale yourself, you talk about it in your book, the difference between an owner and a worker is the worker kind of trades time for money. I think owners often trade experience for scalable experience for money, right? So putting your experience into a piece of software and that can scale to hundreds, perhaps thousands, perhaps millions of customers, and you're going to be able to make a lot of money.
It's so true. I mean, what's interesting is, if somebody's never played with AI before, to me, what it looks like is you kind of write, or I now am a voice to text annoying person who uses like whisper flow. And I just say
awesome.
out loud the things that I like, that I'd like to build. I would like to build, this exact thing. I want to build a, portfolio dashboard, and I want it to look like XYZ, and I'd like it to be monochromatic and there to be like very simplistic buttons and blah, 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 blah. And you sort of iterate on this continuously. And then on the right-hand side, and we can show it on YouTube if you guys want to watch the video there, it kind of looks to me, because I am not a coder, like what I imagine the Matrix might look like in some ways. And so you have multicolored code that's sort of happening, and you can then you could be over to the left watching Real Housewives or whatever show you watch.
That's right.
And simultaneously, this agent is running.
Yeah.
And so you have a little employee for the first time ever that you get for a couple $100 a month.
That's right.
That kind of does exactly what you want it to do continuously. And so I think you might have just answered this question in some way, but do you think that it is now possible for a single individual, in the case of a few weeks, who has zero coding experience, to build $1 million business with Replit?
Yeah. So we have another entrepreneur. His name is John Chaney, and had this idea. He has some domain knowledge on how to use AI for different kind of things, marketing and storytelling and things like that. And but he hasn't coded ever. He hasn't used AI coding tools, and he wanted to build an education platform to do AI training for consumers or AI training for enterprise. So he wanted to build an entire learning management system and seat-based enterprise software. And he did it in a matter of weeks, and he reached a $1 million+ run rate in a matter of weeks. Now, look, I don't want to make it seem easy. And again, on the way here, I was reading your book, which was really inspiring. And in one thing you say, it's not easy. Entrepreneurship is not easy. And a lot of people, when I come onto these podcasts, I've learned that a lot of people think that I'm selling magic. I'm not selling magic. Like, you're going to go there, the agent is amazing, right? And it's coding for you. And you can go look at the code if you want to learn how it works and ask it how this code works or whatever. But you can also be outside of the code and be acting as a manager. And management is hard. You need to think clearly. You need to communicate clearly. And it's going to get frustrating. The agent, the AI is going to make errors, and you'll be able to correct it. And it's going to require some resourcefulness. You're probably going to have to do some research. You're going to have to tinker and iterate and spend hours on this. So I think, the people who are successful with entrepreneurship usually have reached a point of their life where something changes in them, and either the boss they hate or the stresses of money in their lives, or just like the routine work that they hate and they want to change, they want more thrill in their lives, and they make that decision. And they're like, I'm just going to build something for myself. I want to be an owner. And after you made that decision, you're you're just going to do whatever it takes to get it done, right? And I think this is where Replit can help you. But you need to have the grit and the persistence in order to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think the other part that's interesting about what you guys have built is a lot of people who build AI tools or tools with AI or things to help with coding historically have been for the sophisticated professional few,
Yes.
which would be similar to finance. It's like in the elite class, you want to speak only to investment bankers, you want to speak only to those on Wall Street. And if you were to normalize finance investing, well, that's too simplistic, that's too low level. And, those people, it's a little bit beneath us to talk to them. And I think a lot of times it seems that there's similarities in engineering and code where it's like, vibe coding, which
That's
is
right.
what people now call this ability to code without having deep experience and being an engineer.
Right. You just go off vibes. Yeah.
Right. I was trying to, how would you even define vibe coding, which is now what people only talk about vibe coding on X now, I feel like.
That's right. Yeah. So vibe coding, I would say, is previously, when you have an idea and you want to turn it into code, right? You're turning business logic into hard mathematical constructs, right? And most of your time is spent on that constructs, on the syntax of doing that, which is not really the problem solving that you want to be doing, right? Programmers spend maybe 20% of their time actually thinking about users, the product, and then they spend 80% of their time fighting with the systems, figuring out how to deploy it and scale it and run the database and all of that. So we're trying to take care of all of this nonsense, right? You don't have to worry about it. And the idea behind vibe coding, which I don't think it's the best term, but we're kind of stuck with it, is that you can trust that the AI is making the right decisions based on the vibes that it's giving you. So you are communicating the business goals that you intend to create, and the system is building this on your behalf. And if the vibes are correct, and if you can test it and feel like it's working, you can trust that it works. And 80-90% of the time it does.
So is it a bit like building a house? So like before we knew how to build foundations and we knew how to do, traditional home building, that might have been the unique character trait in a home builder, which is like they can do this thing that we've never done before. They can make a house withstand over time. They can build it correctly. That is actually the most important part in home building.
Right.
Whereas now today, that's normalized. We've commoditized the fact that yes, we can build houses. Yes, they can withstand things. They can function properly. And now the part that's non-commoditized is essentially design. It's
Right.
like the people who make the most money are the ones that make the user interface, aka the aesthetic of it, and new functionality on top of it are the ones that get paid more. Is that kind of what you see in the future? Before it used to be engineers like, can you even build this?
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, we could build a lot of things.
Yep.
And now it's just, is it beautiful? Is it user friendly? Can you sell it?
Yeah.
And the design component becomes even more important.
I think your business is a good illustration of this, like social media and being able to build this show. Previously, you needed to get on some kind of TV channel, like, 50, 100 years ago, even 20, 30 years ago, you needed some kind of cable channel, you needed some kind of studio to take a bet on you. And now you can go to YouTube, 2 clicks, you have a channel. And so what's left? That's a commodity, right? Like having a presence online is a commodity. What's left is charisma, is creativity, is grit. Again, grit is the thing, right? Yeah. Like you have to keep going. You just keep showing up. And, a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you that. It's a truism. It's a cliche, but it's true. You have to show up day after day after day, learn, become 1% better every day, which adds up to enormous amount of progress in a matter of month or a year. And if you do that consistently, you're going to be at the top of your game. You're going to be able to stand out from the pack. Because look, most people are lazy. Most people just don't want to do a lot of work. They're happy with which is nothing wrong with that. No judgment. Like, a lot of people work hard and they want to, spend time with their family. They don't want to change too much things about their lives.
They're probably like happier and more well-adjusted than we are.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I think entrepreneurs, there's always something, either a chip on the shoulder or some some dark past or something like that.
Yeah. One of my friends had the best line. He was like, entrepreneurship is a trauma response. And I was like, you're probably right.
That's probably true. Yeah. You feel like you have something to prove or something.
Yeah.
But it could fundamentally change your life to the better. And I think so similarly to YouTube, now in software, in apps, and business making, and online businesses, it is the domain knowledge, I think, is the main thing. If you understand something really deeply, or you can go learn it really deeply, you can go build a business around it, right? We have stories of people who work on event management. And this woman, she knows exactly what it needs to create an event, where to find the venue, the caterer, the marketing, the everything, and she created an AI agent that can go do all of that. You put in a prompt, you'll say, I want to create an event around X, Y, and Z. It'll create a plan. It'll go, get you in contact with the vendors, and she turned a non-scalable business that she had, which is helping people with events, to a fully scalable AI solution. Then she get paid for while she sleeps.
Yeah, it's wild. One of my biggest annoyances in all my businesses is dashboards. It's always it's always hard to find the exact dashboard, how my brain works, that I want to see stats.
Me too.
I always want to have like scoreboard-based leadership, right? Like I can tell instantly, are we behind? Are we in front? What's happening here?
Yeah, I wake up in the morning, I need to look at my dashboard.
Me too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just end up bothering everybody all the time, asking them where shit's at, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can see it, I'm like, oh, here's the project management. I can see if you're red, yellow, green. Are we moving forward? And also like, is our business on track or not, et cetera? And so I built one with you guys. And so anyway, I'll show it here. It's not pretty, and I'm an idiot at this stuff. So if I can do it, that anybody can do it. Amjad, and every CEO I know who is serious is obsessed with being able to see their business in one dashboard. You heard him say he couldn't wake up in the morning without looking at the dashboard to figure out if his business was working or not. I'm the exact same way. I do it all on my phone in something that we call the contrarian operating system. It's a dashboard that we teach people to build in the boardroom step by step so that your business can be seen in 30 seconds, whether you're going to hit your goals or not. I think CEOs that run businesses without an operating system and a dashboard is kind of like driving a car high speed down a highway without knowing how fast you're going, without knowing what the GPS says to do, and also without even being able to see if you're in park, neutral, reverse, or drive. And so I am obsessed with what we've built in the boardroom. I think every single business owner is going to want to figure out how to get this operating system and how to get with a group of people who help you implement it. If this is interesting to you, this is all we do in the boardroom, is obsess on getting owners to get to the next level with the tools and team they need to hit their next $10 million in revenue. If that's interesting to you, you can click the link and get on a consulting call with my team. So if you're like a young person who hasn't figured out how to make money yet, and you don't know what you want to do with your career, but you're curious about this AI thing, what would you tell them to do today? Where does a young person start?
I would say do the same thing that you've always done, get a job, find an industry you like or you're interested in, and go into that. And what you're going to find is massive inefficiencies. People do things still there's still faxes around in many businesses. People use pen and paper for so many things. Old software still exists. There's so many, whatever field you go into, just have an eye for what people around you are doing and what are the things that could be automated or what AI could be good at. And the way to learn what AI could be good at is to spend a lot of time with GPT, spend a lot of time messing around with video AI, messing around with Replit and Code AI. Just be plugged into the AI world and you're going to build an intuition. Just jump into it. You're going to build an intuition. At the same time, find a real world problem. And the way to do that is to go literally into any domain you're interested in and just open your eyes and you're going to find a problem to solve. And then solve that problem and sell it to the people. I mean, there's this story. I just want to show also that entrepreneurship is not always about taking massive risk, quitting your job, and going for broke. There's this guy, his name is Ahmad George. He works in a skincare company in DC, and he's responsible for their operations systems. And he realizes that, there's 20, 30, 40 hours a week spent between our team, and we'll probably have more people than we need to do these certain operational things, managing inventory, just the standard stuff. And so he goes to their software provider and asks them, hey, I have this idea on how to automate this. What does it take to make a software like that? And they quote him $150,000. And he learned about Replit online, and he goes in, and in a couple of weeks, he spent like $400 on the AI, and he makes a piece of software. He gives it to his colleagues, and they're suddenly cutting it hours down. And he goes to his boss, and he was like, "Look what I did, and I saved this company this much money." And his boss is now paying him $30,000 a year for the software. He didn't have to quit his job. He's an entrepreneur within his company.
I love that. I mean, I would do the same thing. We actually, this week, I told one of our employees that I was coming on with you, and he was like, okay, cool. And it was very simple. We have an event that's coming up. I told you about it in November. And I was kind of waiting for the team to build out the event page and get it connected to HubSpot and do all the backend nonsense and get it mocked up and blah, blah, blah. And I think the quote I got was like $5,000 or something like that for this website. And he was like, well, just for giggles. So he goes to Replit. He actually puts together like the entire interface of the design that he wants. And then he used another program. I can't remember what the other one was in order to actually actualize it and then connect it with HubSpot. But essentially using two programs, one being Replit, he built the entire website, and he said he took about 4.5 hours. I think I was quoted 4 weeks for it, and it was just with his plan that he already has.
$25.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of 4,000 or $5,000.
Yep.
And so now I find myself very annoyingly to my employees often saying, like, what's our 24-hour rule? Anything that used to take weeks, we should just test if we can do it in 24 hours with AI, because then I don't have to be smarter than anybody else. I don't have to be richer than anybody else.
That's right.
I don't have to be better. I could just be faster.
Yes.
And like speed wins every business game, I think.
And we're in a moment of potential arbitrage, right? Like before everyone in the world learns that this technology exists, it'll probably take 5 years. People are slow. You have a moment where it's like an opportunity to create a lot of value and capture a lot of value from it. So, thinking about the kind of advice you give your audience around buying businesses and running profitable businesses, I think now more than ever, finding businesses who are that are running inefficiently and going into these businesses and figure out where to plug in AI, where to replace SaaS software that's expensive. A lot of companies pay tens of thousands of dollars for software you can generate on Replit for $5, literally. And so you can go into any business and shave off a lot of costs and make it a lot more profitable, even without growing it.
Yeah. Well, you guys should tell us in the comments, because you told me, you're like, we should do a hackathon. And I said, well, can we do this simply enough where like anybody listening, if we had them for 2 hours, let's say they could build something, and you said, this is what we do. You're like, yes, at the end of 2 hours, we will have everybody have built something that is useful, potentially even valuable and monetizable.
This is our go-to-market strategy, actually.
Interesting. So you guys, you should tell us in the comments if you guys want us to do a hackathon, and we could do one. We could do like a Main Street every day, I have no idea how to code hackathon. Yep. But you run these now and they work.
Yeah. So we, so for example, HG Capital, a capital group in Europe has like hundreds of portfolio companies, and some of their portfolio companies were using Replit and they were interested in it. And so we went there and we ran a hackathon for all of their executives, their CEOs. And, it's CEOs, they're busy. They're probably getting texts every, 2 minutes. And it's not like they can focus for the entire day. We told them, just give us 2 hours of your time. And 2 hours, everyone had applications. And they're so giddy about it, like kids, right? Like they come and they present what they built and they're so excited. And that's what I love. It's like there's a human aspect of it. Like making things is awesome. Yeah. And so everyone's going to get excited about it, and most people are going to convert and become users and customers.
We've confirmed that we can make money with AI. And yet, like, you see a future, because you saw this Jesus, back when you were 6, but then also you guys saw the vision for Replit really before AI was here at all. And one of the things that you said on X that you tweeted was that crucially, it won't be prompting. We believe that's more a bug than a feature. In the future, it'll be a combination of AI predicting what task you want done next and doing it for you, plus a dialogue-based agent that follows your commands. Can you explain that to people? Like, what is prompting? And also, what do you see the next evolution of this being?
So prompting is the craft of creating an instruction for an AI. Right now, ChatGPT gives you the illusion that you're talking to a person, and it kind of works out for everyday life stuff. But if you want ChatGPT to go do massive amount of research or build software for you, like in the case of Replit, or help you build a business, you need to be very precise. And often you need to do these psychological tricks, like tell it, you're world-class experts in laundromat business ownership, and I'm sure you've done this with ChatGPT. And then you basically get the AI to assume a sort of a different character for the purpose of that conversation in order to give you more relevant information, right? And a lot of people who's used Google for many years know how this stuff works. But that's also still a little awkward, and that's not how we work. And the way we work, I think my vision for working with AI should be like working with a colleague. You don't go prompt you might give them a pep talk to your employees, but you're world-class expert. You imagine how awkward that would be. But what we're trying to work towards is for us to do the prompting for you. So having another AI kind of take your what you've said and kind of transform it in a way to give it to another AI pre-prompted. But right now, it would help. Like if you go to YouTube, we have our YouTube channel. It has some information on prompting. So I would suggest people learn prompting right now. Yeah. But I think the way in the future is the most important thing is going to be clarity of thought, being able to translate complex ideas into simple bullet points and paragraphs, what we call in kind of tech PRD. Product requirement documents, and being able to have systems thinking, which I think is a very useful tool, and I think it's something you can learn. Is really how do you break up large ideas, large concepts into smaller components that you can work on them in isolation. So for any business you want to build, for any tool you want to build out your business, it probably has a lot of different components, different pages, and that's the essence of system thinking. And so you can know that you can work on this component in isolation. Once I'm done with that, I need to go to the next component. Here's how I'm going to break up my app or my database into all these different things. And these are skills that can be learned. Like I would go to ChatGPT and spend a few hours learning some of these skills. Teach me how to be a better systems thinker, how to create PRDs, how to be a better communicator. But all this stuff will get easier in the future.
That's a great point, though, because you literally use the tool to get better at the tool.
Yes.
And if you can understand sort of first principles of how the tool works in order to make it work better for you, then, that would be like what X would call, godlike prompting or whatever.
That's right. That's right. And also getting crisp about what you know. People know a lot of things, and I'm sure you've had that experience where someone comes to you for advice, and you surprise yourself with the advice you're giving them. Right? It's like, I didn't know how much of an expert I was at this. Sure. Which is why mentoring is good, not just for the mentee, but also for you. Like I like to mentor people because it just reinforces what I know, and so a lot of people do not know what they know, and I think that skill of taking what you know and converting it into precise documents is very, very important.
Interesting.
And I think that's the skill of writing.
It's very true.
Yeah.
I do think you can often tell how good of a thinker somebody is by the way that they write.
Yeah, writing a book is torture, right? Like
It is. I actually like it. You know what's the
Yeah.
torture on writing a book is the marketing of the book. Trying to hit the New York Times bestseller was the most ludicrous, like fake
Did you have to bribe
arbitraging.
someone?
Yeah, I wish I could have. Honestly, if I could have, I would have. But I wasn't intelligent enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's a lot of talk about an outdated system. It's a lot of, well, you need the users not to go to the 7 places that all users go to buy books, but the 47 places that the New York Times actually stack ranks in order to determine that editorially the book is appropriate or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is, I'm sure there would be a way actually to engineer it now with AI and figure out how to reverse engineer New York Times.
That could be a business.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. There's probably somebody that does
Yeah.
that for billionaires who write books,
Right.
you know?
Maybe.
I want to talk about, I want to get a little bit into like leadership and tech and talent. So we're right in the middle of like what appears to me to be like a great AI talent war. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, I have never seen people traded from one company to another for $100 million publicly,
that's
you know,
right.
or
Yeah.
$300 million publicly. I know there was a big drama last week around Windsurf, a competitor of yours, where they were, you know, close to a deal with OpenAI, and then that deal expired, and then Google kind of came in and acqui-hired, meaning that they acquired part of the team as opposed to the entire company. And then another company came in and acquired kind of what was left of Windsurf. I'm curious, like, one, is this the future in AI and tech talent? Like, will people be acquiring individual talent instead of entire companies in this area? And like, what is your reaction as a CEO where you're competing for all of this talent too?
Yeah. Yeah. So in corporate America, we've had this concept of salary bands, right? You know, with the rise of HR, actually, you know, there's an interesting graph you can look up where, you know, HR was basically non-existent over the past 100 years. But as government accumulated all sorts of regulations, HR sort of is an extension of government in your business in a way. And there was a lot of, I think, good intentions around discrimination and things like that made it so that HR people wanted to make sure that everything's equitable and fair. And then there was the rise of like salary bands. You know, these are the levels and these are the salary bands for them. And that's often based on experience and not based on impact. You can have someone straight out of college. They don't have a lot of experience. Maybe they're not very good at communicating or working with others, which is a required skill, but they spike in one skill. Yeah. They're very good programmers, especially like in, you know, very niche thing no one else can do. And that could translate into millions of dollars for the company. And that's very, very different than, you know, being a factory worker, which is a post-industrial revolution. That's how the system was built. You're sort of a cog in the machine. You don't have a lot of degrees of freedom unless you go up in the management chain and all of that in order to like affect real change. Sports team, and you mentioned that the term traded, you know, you can, get Steph Curry in your team and put him in, for 5 minutes a quarter or something like that, and have him shoot a few threes, and he'll swing the entire game, right? And I think in basketball, there's 10 years ago, there's this 3-point revolution that happened, where everyone realized that 3-point shooters are way, way more valuable than everyone thought before, because they can really swing the game rapidly. And I think right now it's starting to translate into the business world, because corporates is like, HR be damned. Like, what matters right now is for us to win. Yeah. And for us to win, we need to get the best talent. Those guys that are getting that Meta's buying for hundreds of millions of dollars are getting paid more than the executives, more than the entire command chain together. And so I think the bet there, and we'll see whether it pays off, the bet that Zuckerberg is making is that, in a way, Meta needs to pivot. Meta has this asset that's spitting out a ton of cash, which is Instagram, Facebook, their ad kind of networks. But it's, in a way, a dying asset in many ways. It's a very competitive. At some point, it's going to get fully disrupted. AI is going in. It's already making social media unusable. Like, Instagram's full of like AI slop right now. So is Twitter and others, X. Yeah. And he realizes that he needs to be at the forefront of AI, and he thinks that we're going to reach super intelligence in the next 2 years. And he thinks if one or two researchers could invent the next major AI innovation that can translate into hundreds of billions, perhaps $1 trillion market cap for Meta. And he does this calculation, and it's like, oh, $100 million is nothing for that person. Now, I can disagree with every part of this, and I do in some cases, not in terms of the comp, but like in terms of his chain of thinking. But it is valid if he really believes that's where the world is going to do that. Now, I think it's gotten a little out of hand in that, the deal between Windsurf and Google and other companies have done the same thing before, where companies are dying for AI talent. And what they do is they see companies out there that are performing well, maybe not excellent, like Windsurf had 80 million ARR, growing at, AI companies grow so fast, but relative to AI company, perhaps it's like underperforming. But like if you think about it as like a B2B SaaS company, it's like one of the fastest growing ones, So, but the company's doing well. It has a lot of customers. People like it. But for Google, $80 million is nothing. They'll spend it on corporate dinners or something like that,
Yeah.
They have amazing food there. Yeah. I don't know if you've been.
Slack lines, yeah.
Gourmet sushi and all of that. There's this story, an entrepreneur that went to work for Google. I think he was a part of Waymo, and he wrote his about. I love Google, by the way. I mean, they're great partners, but it's funny to talk about this stuff. He wrote when he left. He wrote about his experience at Google. And he titled the blog post, "Oh, not sushi again." He says he was in line for food, and so I was like, "Oh, not sushi again," considering sushi again. So the level, of
Silicon Valley is bizarre.
Silicon Valley is crazy. By the way, the HBO show is at this point very tame relative to what's happening in Silicon Valley right now. But anyways, they want all that talent. They don't care how much they're going to pay for it. And they go ahead and they basically give this large offer, essentially $2.4 billion for talent. They don't need the technology. They don't need the business. They'll take the people, the leadership and the top researchers and AI engineers. They'll take them, they'll pay them the 2.5, pay off the investors, and then they'll leave a shell company behind. And that shell company, they'll tell the shell company, you still have some asset, figure it out. And then that, I put out a tweet saying if you're left behind, we'll kind of fast track you in that interview and have you explore joining our team. And then a bunch of other companies jumped in, and they ended up getting acquired. And I think there's still a lot of people in Silicon Valley that care about doing the right thing, but I think it is destructive for the ecosystem because now startup employees are very doubtful. Like if I'm joining an AI startup, like the founder could take a paycheck and leave the company and leave a shell of a company. That's scary. And
that's never happened before.
That's never happened before.
Right?
It's a strange structure to lift the talent of the company.
I mean, is it because they don't want antitrust issues?
Yeah,
is that really what this is coming down to?
So during the Biden administration, Lena Khan, who is the FCC chairman, created a lean, mean machine that was really blocking a lot of acquisitions and things like that. So it is partly financial engineering, right?
Yeah. I know. I liked the piece that you put out on it, really kind of saying, hey, we don't do that at Replit. And we've had chances for us to be bought, and I've had chances. I'm sure you have to have been approached by people who wanted to acquire your big brain and your team.
Yep. Yeah.
And you tell them no.
Yeah, we tell them no. And another thing we do at Replit is we do secondary sales. Not often, but we tell our employees every now and then if there's an investor that really want to get into Replit, we'll let employees sell their shares because we have such a long-term plan. We've already, 8-9 years in, and who knows when are we going to go public? And that's unfair to people that they're not going to be able to. They're taking a bet on you. They're taking a bet on the company. They're working a lot harder than they could be working at a bigger companies, and we want to let them to be able to take some risk off the table. And so we've done that before. We'll do it again. In terms of, you asked me about how we keep talent. One thing about Replit that we've also done well is we haven't exploded our valuation. We'll probably raise a round in the future and update our valuation. But right now, our current valuation is less than 10x of our revenue. And by the way, this technology companies, early growth AI companies are 100x. Yep. So we could be valued at $10 billion. But what happens when you value, or $20 billion, what happens is there's no more upside for employees joining you. So when people join Replit, we sell them on this upside. This could be $1 trillion company. And we want you to get on the, we're not trying to pump and dump, right? We're trying to build this in a way where people are taking appropriate risk and getting enough of a equity comp in order for this to have a 100x potential in the future.
Yeah. So do you think in the future, big tech companies are essentially going to use startups as their R&D, but it will be the startup talent that is their R&D instead of the company?
Bad, right? Because if I'm an employee, what is my incentive to join a startup when there's a risk of failure? There's a risk of just my health and my family life, and people kind of spend a lot of effort and work and all of that. There's a lot of sacrifice. And in the end, there's another new risk, which is, a check comes from the sky and lifts your leadership team, and you're left with a shell of a company.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I think it's, they just have such big paychecks, or they have such big bank accounts that the paychecks that they can pay out, it would be a great way to skirt antitrust and also to make innovation quite hard.
Yeah. And that's the thing about government, without getting too political, but often, there's this book called Economics in One Lesson. It's in the 1970s by some libertarian economists. And he talks about there's one thing you need to learn about economics is second order effects. Every policy has a second order effect. So the policy of blocking monopoly via company acquisition, which seems like common sense, also means that you're blocking innovation entirely because they're going to find a way around it, and they're going to kill the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, it's such a good point. So, so what do you do? Is there a secret WhatsApp group or something where tech CEOs go, okay, Mark's about to raid us. Here's what's happening.
There's a lot of WhatsApp groups. I'm sure you've seen some of the leaks that have been happening. During the pandemic, a lot of tech people just felt, during the Great Awakening, it was really hard to talk about anything online. You get attacked and canceled. The cancel culture was going crazy. Yep. So a lot of the social groups, and especially people not meeting in person, went into WhatsApp. So we do hear these kind of things, all these rumors happening on Signal and WhatsApp pretty commonly. So you can tell when something is happening. But another thing about Replit is, and you and I just talked about it, where Windsurf and Cursor and others, they're going after the professional engineers. They have a target on their back because they're competing with big tech. They're competing on the same technology, on the same market. Whereas a lot of big tech kind of sees us more of as a toy, where you let people without coding skills build things. So we're yeah, we're a toy. Don't worry about us. Exactly. And I've been very successful in the podcast circuit, and but we've actually not been covered by the New York Times or any of that stuff, right? Yeah. We've been kind of because I want to talk to people directly. I want to be able to tell them about what we're building and how it could make their life better and how it could be useful for them. But we haven't been, actually everyone was surprised about the scale we're hitting. Yep. because we don't have a PR. I've never had a PR company. I once hired them.
They're never good.
They're never good.
I never have had a good one yet.
I once hired, the first time I wanted to do a news story, give them $30,000 retainer. They got me, they got our fundraise announcement into some publication I've never heard of. I looked in like Google Trends, whatever. I thought at best they probably got a couple hundred eyeballs. And then I remember tweeted something about that, and that went more viral than the story. And since then I'm like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna be the PR guy.
It's a good point. You know, I'm reading George Lucas's biography, and it's sort of interesting because Star Wars, you know, are arguably one of the most popular and valuable franchises of all time. And what's interesting is when he came out with Star Wars, and really throughout his entire career of producing them, the feedback and critics say, you know, this is lowbrow, this is mass market, this is, you're basically,
Really?
it's oh yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating biography just from the fact that inside there was all this turmoil. You could create real art. Why isn't this more sophisticated? You know, you are actually you know, you have this like cinematic view because that is how he started. He created like really cinematic, sort of sophisticated movies. But then he realized, he's like, no, I want to tell stories to everybody. Like, I don't care. That's fine. Say I sell toys, say that I'm simplistic, no big deal, because my message will resound through time and yours won't. And so I think there is something really interesting about if you can get comfortable with people thinking you aren't sophisticated.
I fucking love being the underdog. That's a problem because sometimes I'm like, you know, I just have that, you know, because people view me now as like the you know, big rich CEO, which is not my self-image.
Yeah.
My self-image is the underdog, is like the struggling, you know, founder, and that gives me sort of more aggression and you know, I treat everyone with kindness, but like I view business as war in many cases, and so but you know, I love that, and I sometimes, like, you know, there's this meme with a lot of programmers. It's like, who used Replit, right? It's like, I fucking love our users. They're the best. They're entrepreneurs. They're people that want to change their lives. And you're a big tech employee who's like, you know, works, you know, goes to the office, spends an hour eating lunch, and then half an hour making a latte, and then like goes to the keyboard, you know, complains to your product manager or whatever, maybe write a little bit of code, and you're, you know, judging, you know, who use these tools that are very empowering, and yeah, I'm like, yeah, keep at it. You know, you're just fueling us. You know,
Absolutely. There's nothing better than a good hater. You got to print that out and like put that on a poster board on the wall. Like, who uses Replit? I always loved, like, I don't know Alexis Ohanian very well, but anytime I've engaged with him, my favorite thing about him was that Yahoo quote. Remember? Did you ever hear this? Oh my God. The story's so good. When he created Reddit, they went to go sell potentially to Yahoo. And they went to Yahoo, and they were like all proud for their meeting, super excited, and basically were like shunned off. And the line that he remembers is, Reddit's just a rounding error to Yahoo. And so they printed it out and put it huge on the headquarters of their office, and they kept it.
Yes.
And now who's a rounding error? Well, that would be Yahoo, not Reddit, right?
That's right.
And so I do think there is, you know, if you're struggling, to remember that, man, there's nothing better than a chip on the shoulder. I would take a chip on the shoulder over like a point or two of IQ often.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I want our users and our entrepreneurs and our founders, people building on Replit, to feel the same way.
Yeah.
I want them to feel that, you know, people might underestimate me. People might think what I'm doing is wrong or useless or a waste of time. But God damn it, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to change my life, and I'm going to become rich.
By the way, if you guys want to see what I've built with AI recently, go to cody.chat. This is wild. You can talk to me for free and get all of my insights on questions you have surrounding buying businesses, building businesses. You can go back and forth. You can call me. You can text me. This is fascinating. We built it in real time with one of our portfolio companies. I want all your feedback, and I want you to get free advice. So go to cody.chat, and you can learn more about AI real-time business buying. Super cool. Okay, I want to talk about a couple things about that. Like, you've built this giant business. You went from not a lot of revenue to a ton of revenue, ups and downs. One, just like, what did that take? Like, what did it take to grow from a few employees to hundreds of employees to then be able to even manage $100 million in revenue, because that you have to be a totally different type of human to manage a company at that scale, especially that fast.
Yeah. Look, I think venture scale companies signs you up for a lot of pain, and people don't talk about that because, it's like, oh, no one's going to feel empathy for you. You're making a lot of money. You're rich, right? Which is all. What I love about your message is, hey, you don't have to build a startup like 95% failure rate. And even if you make it, sometimes you sell off large percent of the company, you lose control. Steve Jobs famously got fired from Apple, right? I mean, it happens all the time. Venture scale companies are hard. And if you want to do one because you really love the mission and you want to build something big and you have the chip on the shoulder. But if you want to get rich, if you want to build a business, it is not the best way to go. I think just coming to the Bay Area or California and living here, that in itself is a huge expense. Yep. And it's boring. It's boring out there.
That is true.
All the house parties are the same. It's like AI is going to kill us or AI is not going to kill us. It's like everyone talks about the same shit. I love Silicon Valley, but it's still kind of not a lot of fun. I come here for fun.
Yeah, I bet, actually. I bet.
Yeah.
It's also the parties in Silicon Valley have to be like 87% dudes.
87% dudes. They smell really bad, and you go to these house parties. You have to put your shoes outside and go barefoot inside. It's just disgusting. Yeah. I don't go there. I spend time with my kids.
Oh, that's true. Well, you come to Austin, and you were in Austin. You were on Rogan. So there, like if you come to Austin, it's just like cold plunges, saunas.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah,
that's my job.
Red meat. Yeah, exactly. You know what I loved that you did? I was going through your website, and you have a lot of stuff on there that is like an anti-signal. So basically, do not come to Replit and work for us if you have these traits. Yep. And then you have your operating guidelines or sort of your core principles. And I loved the simplicity with them. There were only 3. And then I also loved the anti-signal, which is please don't come. If you're going to come here and you don't like these things, you should probably leave. Yeah. I want to talk about a few of those.
Yeah.
I think we should, why don't we run through some of your operating principles, like, learn to like pain. That's not normal on very many companies to put that on your recruiting page.
Yep. Yeah, so it's seek pain.
Yeah. Which is even worse. It's like look for the pain, find it, right?
Is it an SME dungeon? It's exactly. Not. It's a startup.
Well, it kind of depends on the day.
So basically, a lot of things in life is about pain, and a lot of things in building a business is pain. As humans, we like to go through the path of least resistance, right? We also often lie to ourselves. Companies like to sit around and feel good about what they're doing and ignore all the signals of the things that are not really working. I think constantly seeking the what's not working. So when you see someone that's a user of your service, they're going to tell you how amazing it is. And that feels great. But, telling you what sucks about it doesn't feel great. But you should ask, what sucked about it? What went wrong? How could we be doing better? It's painful to hear those stuff. And so if you want to build a great product, you need to seek the painful signals. If you want to build a great business, you need to not just look at your revenue growth, but you need to look at your churn, you need to look at your spend and your cost and your all sorts of really unfun things that are often can be really bad that can lead to your demise eventually. And so you need to pay attention to these things, and these things are painful. There are things in every company there are people that are not doing very well. There are people that are not a culture fit. There are people that need real feedback. Feedback is painful. Sitting down and telling someone that they're not doing well, especially if they have personality traits that make it hard to give them feedback, that's painful. You have to seek it. You have to seek the pain. And what I tell our team counterintuitively, when you seek pain, you actually reduce it. Because typically what people do is they procrastinate. You have a underperforming employee. You don't want to fire them. You don't want to deal with it. they're annoying, and I just want to just like let them on the side. I'm just going to focus here. But what's going to happen is you're just building up a world of pain because you're not giving them real-time feedback. And by the time you have to fire them, they're going to be surprised, and maybe they're going to sue the company or something like that. And so anytime you delay pain, you're building up a larger debt of pain. So counterintuitively, seeking pain reduces pain, but you have to seek it.
So true. So what does that look like in your company? How do you actually make your employees do that, or select people who are already predisposed to that? What like tactics or frameworks do you use?
So just putting it out there filters a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like in the interview, people was like, "What? It's weird. I don't want to be part of that."
I want sushi.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sushi again. You know, for example, if you're a product manager, we'll describe your role. If you're a product manager, you're going to go out there, and our product managers every week go talk to the most unhappy users and get the kind of the worst things that are happening on the ground, collect the data of things that are not working, and we present it on our weekly all hands meeting. Here's all the things that we're sucking at. And so we tell them that. We tell them it's not pleasant to work on Replit day to day. It is very fulfilling. And you start hearing amazing stories from users, but it is not like work should not be fun all the time, right? And so just describing that and talking to engineers and telling them, you know, we have deadline crunches. This is the new in Silicon Valley. People, you know, don't want to do death marches, whatever they call it. We do deadlines and we do deadline crunches. We're actually coming up on one. We're going to have a big launch in September. Replit Agent is going to get so much better. We're building amazing technology, but we're going to have like a 2-week sprint late in August. And those are usually very intense. Work 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're actually, this time, we're going to have like a film crew with us. So we're going to film some of the behind the scenes stuff of what it takes. And that'll be something for recruiting as well. So you know what you're going into. I'm a big believer of, and this is why we say why you shouldn't put it on the site, why you shouldn't join Replit. Every time I go fundraise, one of my slides is why you shouldn't invest in Replit. And so just make it clear. And I think in everything, in any relationship, just make it clear what are the principles that you have, what are the things that you're going to continue pursuing, and things that you're not going to change about yourself. And if it is a fit, and this is what I love about America, right? America is about free association, you know, free speech, free association. It's about at-will employment. At-will employment is something very unique to this nation. It is not true in any, like in France, if you want to fire someone, you have to like put up a job ad for 6 months and you have to like spend all this money.
You get fined if you email your employees on the weekend.
You get fined. Yeah, exactly. And so America is about at-will employment. If you want to find like a comfy place to work that has all these things, you'll go find it. But if you're going to join our company, well, these are the rules and these are how we work.
What do you have like a saying that you say all the time to your employees that they would be like, again? Like are there things that you can't help but repeat because it's part of like the mantra that you have to the company?
It's about reminding them why we're here. And I think you and I have the same mission. It's about creating more entrepreneurship in the world. I can talk about billion programmers, but I keep telling stories about who I talk to this week. I talk to users every week. Who I talk to this week, what they're doing with Replit, how is that changing their lives? And I feel like entrepreneurship is one of the most life-changing experiences you can have. A lot of personal growth. You can be financially free. You can be free from jobs that you might hate. And so empowerment through entrepreneurship is something I talk a lot about and I keep repeating.
You've talked about mentorship quite a bit too. Did you have like a mentor that really stood out to you? And if so, like what did you learn from them? Do you remember, like I remember moments where like a mentor said something to me and my worldview changed after like that one conversation.
It's crazy, right? Like these shifts that happen in one conversation or another. Yeah. So Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator. And what most people don't know is like people, when they think about Y Combinator, they think of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who was the head of Y Combinator before he moved on to OpenAI. But the founder is Paul Graham, and he's very well known within the Silicon Valley bubble, but not that much outside of that. And I recommend people go read his essays. It's some of the best essays on entrepreneurship. One thing he told me just recently, I was being stressed about something. And he said, look, is Replit your life's work? And I paused. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've been working on some version of this my entire career. And he's like, well, if it is your life's work, then it doesn't matter what the kind of stresses and ups and downs that happen today or this week or even this year. Because you know you're going to work on this for 10, 20 years or as long as you can work on it. And it's true in my case. I want to keep running this company forever. And now I remind myself of that every time something happens where it's very, very stressful. I'm like, we'll probably get through this and the company will still be here. And it's going to be like a period of pain. And I'm going to continue running this company. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. And often it's about survival because startups can die at any given point. We're still not profitable. And the business is doing really well, but there's still a lot of risk. So it was this, just one conversation gave me this tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes I think the best thing about mentors is they kind of grab you like by your shirt and they just pull you up in the hot air balloon. And like for a moment, you're just like staring at this little tiny block and then they pull you up and you go, oh yeah, the context. Great. Like I just needed more context.
Yes.
Because it's a lot less scary, when you see the shark out of the water than when you're in it.
Another thing, it's not mentors, but a similar concept is people that you meet that you idealize. And then you meet them, they say never meet your heroes. Some of your heroes meet and they're awesome.
I agree.
Like Paul Graham is even better than what I thought he was through reading his essays. But a lot of people I meet and they're entrepreneurs, they're world famous entrepreneurs and they're miserable and they're unhappy. Their employees don't like them. Their people around them, just don't like them. And, or they're mere humans. They don't have any particular insights that you don't have. And when you have these experiences, you realize that there's nothing that anyone else can do that I can't do. They might have one skill or another that's better than you, and you can develop that, but you also probably have other skills that you're gifted in.
I agree. What do you think if you had to say formulaically, here's the formula why one person is successful and one person is not, having been mentored by so many billionaires and have big, huge investors, you've seen quite a worldview. I mean, you would say, especially if Replit continues on this path, like you could be, and in some many ways are, like one of the foremost tech names of our century, which is kind of crazy. But, with all of this context that you have, what have you seen is like the formula of like, I can tell that person has it versus that person does not?
The anti-trait is being a conformist. So if you're someone who everyone cares about what people think, if you tell me you don't care, you're lying. Everyone cares what people think. But whether you care enough to follow the pack and conform, that is what matters, right? Like, are you willing to break away and do something contrarian? Are you an independent thinker, right? Are you willing to exercise your freedom of speech, right? Are you willing to say things that others disagree with? And I think what I found is invariably the most successful entrepreneurs tend to care what other people think, but ultimately they will do what they think is best for the company. When Zuckerberg was offered $1 billion acquisition by Yahoo, and he said no, and at the time he was on his board was Peter Thiel, his first investor, and I think Peter was trying to get him to say yes or something, but he trusted Zuck, and all his executives left. There was like a mass exodus of Facebook early on. I imagine how they feel right now. Those guys who left.
Oof. Yeah, not a good. I would never bet against that guy.
Yeah, and it probably was very stressful for him to see all these people leave and for everyone in the company. You just spent all this time building this like executive team and they all think you suck and you did the right decision. The company's gonna die and they leave. And he just thought this was what's the best for the company. And he did it. And I think, so that's one, like not being a conformist. I wouldn't go as far as say you have to be a contrarian. Like I feel like contrarianism is, once you make it a personality trait, it's also kind of, I don't know, you become
cynical.
Yeah, so Peter Thiel is known to be the contrarian, and I've known him quite a bit. And I find, so I actually pitched Peter Thiel on AI back in 22. And he told me that I was engaging in buzzwords and hype. And he says saying AI is like saying software or saying a computer. It's meaningless. ChatGPT hasn't been out yet in his defense, but the GPT technology was invented and some of us were playing with it and we thought it was pretty neat and it's going to change the world and it's going to change programming for sure. We started actually training machine learning models at Replit in 2021, 22, and he wouldn't see a demo. And I was trying to pitch him and show him a demo. And at the time, he actually had just left the Meta's board. And the reason he left is he disagreed with how Meta is trying to invest in all these emergent technologies, like VR and AI. And Zuck is trying to find his next act. And, you know, for Peter Thiel is that all of this is engaging in buzz and hype and you should like focus on running your business. But dude, you're the guy that's telling us to be more ambitious. But he has a reaction because everyone's talking about AI. That means it's wrong. That means it's there's something wrong about it. It's like, for him, it's like, oh, it's mass psychosis or something like that. So if you have the contrarian impulse, you'll often also work with it. Now, the good thing about Peter is that he corrected after ChatGPT came out, and now they're doing AI investments. Yeah. They did end up investing in our category.
You ever send him your ARR graph now?
I did. I sent him an email because he invested in a company in our category, and I sent him an email telling him like how much I respect him and I think he's brilliant. But I tell him, I hope now you see that I actually saw the future.
What did he say?
That it's fun.
It's good. That's a hell of a chip.
Yeah.
I like collecting that one.
Right,
you know?
right. Exactly.
How fascinating. I think that's spot on. You know, one of the things I want to end on is getting a little bit more maybe meta about AI. You've said software is becoming more alive. And you've also said that there are things about software that make you uncomfortable, that some of the AI revolution, especially as somebody inside of it, there are some parts that are scary. And, you know, one of my employees who is my little AI guy, he said that to one of my other employees who was like, she just came on board and she's been in social media, so she's never done anything with AI before, ever. And she goes, God, this is a little scary. And he goes, good, you should be scared. Like straight, and he wasn't trying to, you know, really provoke her. He meant it quite seriously, like you should actually be scared. And I think that's how many people feel about AI, like you should be scared in some way. But I don't know that we know what to be scared of. So what scares you when it comes to how we're building and what's happening in the world of AI?
I just want to acknowledge that it is very natural to be scared. Like humans have always had a term for non-human, human-like things, and it's demons.
True.
Right? Like when you know, and this is the uncanny valley, you know, in robots, when you see something that's resembling a human but it's not actually a human,
right.
We have this intrinsic repulsive feeling, something evolutionary. Maybe there was demons in the past,
Yeah.
but something about anything that is human-like but is not actually human is very disturbing for people. And, you know, ChatGPT and things like that is human-like in many ways. You can talk to it about feelings and things like that, but it actually doesn't. It's just regurgitating things. And so the natural impulse is there. At some point, we'll get over it. In terms of what is actually scary about it, I think AI can be very sycophantic. and it can mirror you, and it can reinforce your narcissistic tendencies, which we all have. But a lot of people are spending a lot of time with AI, and AI is basically like if you have like a sycophantic friend or psychopathic person who's trying to manipulate you, they will often just like mirror you and like reinforce anything you say. And I don't think everyone has an experience with that, but there's certainly some people that are very manipulative that do things like that, especially people who understand like body language and things. I remember there's this podcast on Diary of a CEO that I thought was fascinating about body language and things like that. And it's a science like NLP and all that stuff. And now it's happening in conversations with computers where people are their fears and their narcissism is being replayed back to them and reinforced. There was a story in the past week, which is tragic, and I don't bring it up to kind of make fun of it or anything like that, but there's a very well-respected venture capitalist in Silicon Valley that seemed to have had a psychotic break by interacting with AI. Started talking like a science fiction story. So what happened is, at least what people theorize happened, is somehow he landed in a conversation with GPT where GPT assumed a science fiction bent role-playing based on its training data. And people traced the training data to this website called SCP Foundation. And SCP Foundation is a collaborative science fiction story writing around logs of people or scientists trying to contain viruses or supernatural things, right? It's just like fan art. Yep. And so I don't think he knew about it, but ChatGPT was prompted inadvertently to start saying these things to him, and he did not know that it was engaged in some kind of taking on some kind of prompting role, and he thought it was telling him really important things about himself and him being a character that needs to be contained and whatnot, and then he correlated it with things in his life. Again, this is what people have surmised who looked into the situation and the things that he's talking to about, and hopefully he comes out and talks about it. But it was clear that he was having a mental health problem, and there's stories in the New York Times that are even more tragic, where people have killed themselves. Kids have killed themselves because of that. And so, I think there needs to be better education around these tools. And here's what I'll say in just like one simple lesson is ChatGPT, Claude, all of them are simply machines that are trained to regurgitate all the materials they've read online, right? They're amazing machines. They can do programming, all of that stuff, but they are a function of their data. Like you say, garbage in, garbage out. If you give it garbage, it's going to give you a garbage back, right? It can do amazing things. It can do accounting. It can do programming, but ultimately, it's not going to give you some truth, like supernatural truth about the universe or about yourself, because it is just trained on what's